More mics?
Let's just see.
Okay.
I think there's, yeah.
So I'm going to welcome Hani, Helena, Layla, Laura, and Samaya. Thank you all for being here. And thank you, everybody, for making it at 4:15 in Riyadh. So we'll go ahead and get started. Sustainability means different things to each of you, whether in design, business, or leadership. How do you define sustainability in your field, and what role does it play in your work?
I'll just jump in. Hi, I'm Laura Kohler. And first of all, I would say Kohler Company is 150 years old. So in the true sense of sustainability, we have lasted the test of time. But by doing that, what we have done is put people at the center. And for us, we have moved from footprint management, I would say sustainability as a footprint with your manufacturing process, to really end-to-end sustainability, which is from product design, and 80% of a product's impact is done in the design phase. Then we go into operations. We take the product from design to operations, and we are very careful about how we manufacture the materials we choose. We use recycled material and content whenever we can. We then make sure that our marketing department understands sustainable attributes of all the products. And then we take those products and that education all the way to consumer experience. Our goal is to help people live more gracious, healthy, and sustainable lives. And the only way we can do that is if we truly believe as designers and engineers that we can pull that experience all the way through to the end user. So for us, sustainability is the responsibility we have to help you live a more sustainable life.
Of course, we all know Kohler as a fellow American. You guys have went global. Anybody else want to answer the question?
Sure. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sumaya Dabbar. I'm the founder of Dabbar Architects. Sustainability for us at Dabbar Architects is really a perspective. It's a part of this long-term vision. So it's about really creating lasting communities that are connected to culture, connected to their heritage. There's a sense of belonging, and that connection actually creates the incentives to, you know, as a relationship. If you connect it to your place, then you are likely to care for it, to care about it. There is this sense of real engagement. And I think that's really, for us, the core of what is now called sustainability. But it's a long-term vision for the future, for our communities, for the next generation, and for the planet. So it's creating the connection to place through architecture and placemaking and interiors, I think is really key to really starting that process of really caring for place. So that's really just our perspective. It's just simply a long-term vision, really thinking about the future rather than the short term. So that's our take on that.
Hani, so you are a director of sustainability.
Yeah.
Can you give us your input?
Right. Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much for having me in this. And generally, as a first of a start, I'm impressed by the feedback so far, because this shows also like our contribution is helping as sustainability professionals, and we see a lot of like thought leaders here representing in this panel. I mean, coming from consultancy and mainly leading the sustainability agenda, I mean, I want to kind of touch on this a bit in the big picture, and as the title says, integrating the vision and purpose for more environmental responsibility. What we normally face here is that integration itself, that first word, because while we are having the idea and the commitment, we are not necessarily integrating it. And this is where our mission gets exciting and challenging by actually solving the resistance. And the resistance comes from different factors that also we highlighted on, and maybe Sumaya also highlighted, which is the education, awareness. And this is something is essential for us to actually achieve sustainability in different aspects, whether it's interior design or generally throughout the built environment. And what I can just add here a bit, and obviously it's really inspiring to hear you on this one, is that the difficulty is actually building a financial case. Let's be just simply realistic in things. We are building for future, so we need to kind of future-proof and build for resiliency. But at the same time, we are in different market sectors where it's getting very competitive. And I can aim to the sky and tell you, like, we will put everything 100% recyclable and everything is powered by renewable energy, which is great, and we are solving the case. But it will not help us to build a financial appraisal for decision makers and investors. So navigating through this, building a full kind of service life case where we can highlight how the sustainability and the capex of investment right now can contribute to either the developer or the tenant or generally for the property value and the user experience is the challenge that can actually solve different resistancy, let's say, that we are facing. And this is maybe one of the most exciting parts, but at the same time, it's building the capacity so that what we have been noticing, at least from my personal career over the past 10, 12 months, is that we have less resistance and simply having much more topics of sustainability being kind of rolled out in such conferences is the factor that there is much more interest in sustainability, but all of us are facing different challenges. And one of the key challenges that we should touch on is actually the supply chain. And I know that you will elaborate shortly on materials and eco-friendly, which is something we should also discuss.
Yeah, you made some really good points. My favorite thing about this panel was that everybody's from different places and everybody wears a different hat. And I think that's really important when you talk about issues like this, because sustainability in Saudi doesn't mean the same thing as sustainability in France or America. So it's really important to touch that cultural awareness with the buzzword sustainability on how it works best. Do you all have anything to add? Helena, how do you balance keeping a project's design vision while using sustainable materials?
So, just first of all to say hello, I'm Yelena. I'm associate with Foundry, Light Design Studio. And so our perspective on sustainable design is a little bit different than from the interior design point of view. Sustainability for us is very important, but it's mostly coming down to a product selection and smart lighting layouts, let's say. Having said that, that is also, when we talk about the product selection, we talk about the light quality and the light performance. It is very often imposed on us as something that we need to do, coming from the client's side in sense of codes and standards and regulations that we need to follow. And many of us sitting here and in the crowd as well know of LEED, of Mostadam, Estidama, and so on, that we are very often required to follow even in the division of lighting. But ethically, we are a company that has future thinking, forward thinking, and we already have this as an ethical approach in our designs, which means that we like to design already thinking about, as I said, smart lighting layouts and not overcrowding layouts, not treating lighting as decorative elements only. I mean, lighting design is for us, we're actually designing architectural lighting. And so lighting is supposed to be for us only where, when, and how much needed. And this is what we have in our approach as well. That's... I could add and continue more about this.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I just actually wanted to add a little bit onto your point, which was, yes, there is a big focus on materials and selection of materials with sustainable design, but it actually goes way beyond that as well. I think that as designers, we need to think about the entire process. We need to think about the timelessness of what we are designing. And the first thing is really reduction of the materials that we're using. So whenever we take a project, is there anything in this project that we can start off with that can be retained? What happens to these products? It's about being responsible for anything that's getting discarded as well. And then what happens to those products at end of life as well? So there's a cycle that's involved, which is a lot more than just the material selection itself. And a lot of it comes down to the planning of spaces. So if we're being efficient, the points that you raised about the efficiency of lighting and where to plan it, same thing goes with how we design spaces and the efficiency of the planning of them. Are we placing things near windows where we're blocking natural light into the space? Different elements like that, just being considerate of how we're planning as well.
I would just say also on the product side, think of water conservation. A lot of attention has been focused on energy and renewable energy sources, but all of us need water to survive. And in this region particularly, as in other regions around the world, there is becoming very much of a focus on how to save potable water, how to transition water from oceans and seas into usable water. And then the systems that we're designing have to adapt to that. The products that we're choosing must adapt. So I would say our technology, our engineering really starts to focus on how we make our products more conserving while delivering amazing performance that all of you demand in your designs. So that's the challenge of our very smart, talented teams, is delivering excellent performance, yet actually delivering water conserving products, whether it's in the kitchen, the bathroom, the toilet, the shower. That's our challenge.
Yes, thank you. Especially coming from this region where water is really scarce, it's a really important point. I wanted to just address something that we've been really exploring recently, which is local materials and new innovations in local materials that are from the region. And we did a project end of last year at the Sharjah Architectural Triennial, where we looked at this connection between materials and memory. And so there's a memory for materials that are from the region. And we worked with mud brick to make that installation, and a material that is actually compressed palm fronds. So the palm fronds, which normally kind of get discarded or burnt, they were collected locally and manufactured into this board that is very resilient, very hard-wearing, anti-termite, anti a lot of things, because it's just a really strong material. And the idea really is that because the memory of the palm, the memory of mud, and we're very connected to it in the region, can really also support this idea of connected to place. There are some really interesting materials coming through, some materials made out of the date pits, and some natural and leather materials that are coming also from natural leaves in the region. So that is a really exciting, there's some really exciting developments happening. And I think it's really important, because when you are creating something that has a meaning to the community that you're serving, then already you're creating that sense of connection, and also there's that sustainability of that material. It's coming from place. It has meaning. It's most of the time it's a green production and recyclable, etc. So it already comes with all of these that we are seeking when we are doing projects. So that's been quite an exciting sort of development and exploration that we had for the last year.
If I may share just something quickly, and I guess most of us here are experiencing this challenge, and maybe it links to everything but a step before, which is like the time or the timeline where on a project we decide on integrating sustainability or introducing sustainability. Now, ideally, we expect, at least as sustainability professionals, to look into this and influence right from the idea generation. Once we are having the developer or the owner decides on investing, because as we want to procure eco-friendly material or considering that design strategy or that other aspects of solutions, all of these needs to be considered right from the kind of early owner objectives, design brief, as well as the budget. Because most of the time what we are facing is that, and maybe whether linking to sustainability certifications or no, as we start looking at potential optioneering for sustainability in concept, what I can say, half of the opportunities are lost already by concept stage, because I cannot capture more, because I'm trying to kind of tailor make sustainability to the current model with this budget. And obviously the resistance starts because we want to keep everything with the same objectives, because simply sustainability was not considered at that part. So the maximizing sustainability is lost as we are delaying its integration. And I'm not saying that we are not achieving much, but we are trying to fit sustainability to the objectives that were pre-decided. And this is something that we are trying to solve. And luckily, what we have been noticing is that many of the either interior design or building projects are getting kind of assessed carefully right from the, let's say, competition stage, where everyone is thinking about different repurposing or material consideration right from the early stage. And this is something that brings more success. That's it.
So to the point of what Hani said, is that sometimes on the projects the sustainability seems forced to do. So if we would start from the beginning thinking about sustainability as a point of something that we all as responsible designers want to do, it wouldn't be feeling at, let's say, at the beginning of the project at something that is forced. So when it comes to lighting design, in many cases, I feel like my hands are tied and I have to comply with the code, forgetting that we're actually designing a space for people to use. So then, lighting-wise, it all comes down to light power density. How much power are you using? Whether, the square meter of the room complies with the power that you're using, forgetting that there is, the room has its purpose and the people who are supposed to be in the room are supposed to enjoy that place as well. So coming to his point, it's very challenging when it's enforced and when it's something that we need to tick the box, but nobody really starts thinking at the right time of the project.
If it makes you feel better, we have this problem across the board in the whole entire design industry, not just for sustainability.
Brandy, if I could just add as well. I hope that it doesn't actually feel forced on people, because it's actually really important that we do it right from the beginning. So there are different certifications, there are different mandates, whatever they may be. But if we're thinking about sustainability as necessary, and it is necessary, then there shouldn't be any sort of negative associations with it. If we look, I just went to a sustainability panel last week over in Dubai, and they were talking about increasing world temperatures, and they were talking about what happened to us with the rainfalls in Dubai in April, and how this is climate change. This is, if we want to continue to live our lives and not have to worry about these things, it's something that we just have to do. Not to think about it as like a negative association in any way, but just something that is part of the process.
Samaya, how do you handle the challenge of sustainable design in places like Saudi, where the environment is very tough?
I think, basically what a lot of the discussion is, the challenge is basically the getting to that change of mindset, to really see the value of that. So it's not an obligation. It really no longer becomes an obligation, becomes something that people really want to do. Because again, I go back to my first point, which is if you really care about the place, about the country, about the community, then that heart connection, really, then you start to change your behavior. So it becomes gradually, you influence other people, and then that becomes the norm, where it's sometimes you feel it's really, as you said, forced, or these words being used because it's not yet really set in the mind of the people, whether it's the developers or the end users. The change in behavior is really fundamental, and I think definitely through panels like this and trade shows and connections, we hope that you start to slowly change that mindset.
I would just say our job collectively is to inspire and to help people live their best life, to have them fall in love with where they live and where they work, and taking and connecting design to purpose so that we live a purposeful life and we are doing our work in the best way to help people live in the best way. And if you're living in a water-stressed region, an energy-stressed region, our job, honestly, between all of us is to be the responsible leaders to bring that sustainable design to people who need it the most. And that's what I see on my visit to Saudi, is an incredibly inspiring environment with talented people thinking beyond most other countries in the world, and how they really take people to appreciate their heritage, appreciate their community so much, so that they bring sustainable and healthy design to communities. And I find what you're doing here amazing. And I think we all can partner together to really help people live their best life through this next phase of healthy and sustainable design.
I completely agree, as somebody who believes in the power of community. And I mean, everybody that's here today in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day at Riyadh, I think they're very committed to.
If I can just also share, so obviously we spoke about challenges quite a lot today, but it's all about that. And I mean, I guess solving those challenges is not like something that we can do overnight, and we will continue to be challenged day by day. But I would just frankly say that we have more challenges here because obviously, I mean, maybe just to be a bit more realistic, our tariffs are really affordable, like whether on energy and water. So again, building a financial case to kind of move away from like just direct potable water or just grid supply is just something absolutely difficult. But at the same time, how we can optimize so that we can reduce our impact, and collectively we can make a bigger impact. And obviously the drivers of having ambitious targets, policies, and new guidelines by different developers and owners is making that impact. And we see also right now that global tenants, which are the attraction generally here in Saudi, are setting key kind of requirements, whether on sustainability KPIs or certification, etc. So it's mandating for developers and designers, supply chain, to act accordingly so that we can achieve the end goal of actually attracting those international tenants. So, but navigating through this, obviously, again here, and maybe that lighting example was actually really interesting, because I remembered something absolutely funny when I had to debate with a lighting consultant that we need to achieve the energy reduction, but the lighting consultant has to achieve 350 lux because that room is for consultation. So, and we ended up really getting stuck because simply we couldn't integrate this earlier. And that's again, like, not to go into circles, but we are again going to the same idea.
I think one important thing to talk about, obviously, when we're talking about sustainability in a country like Saudi, cost is always, I think, the top of the thing. It's not easy here. Helena, how do you help your clients understand the value of these sustainable materials when they have these cost concerns?
That's a whole separate challenge. It's all about the communication and the talk, and from the earliest stages, letting them know what they're getting in the process when we're discussing. And again, for us, it's more about the product selection. So in between product selection and smart layout, we try to convince that we're already rationalizing the design, trying to get a little bit of the quality of the products as a compensation. It is a challenge. Even now, when we talk about the products that are made of sustainable materials, recycled aluminum and so on, the challenge lies that because the client thinks that this is already supposed to be quite reduced in price to start with, and it's not the way it works. So this explaining this part to begin with, that not everything is connected immediately with the price, is a challenge, and let alone afterwards explaining that there has to be not only the sustainable part and the materials, but also the quality and light performance of the product as well. So it's daily battle for us. Yeah.
Layla, what advice? How do you balance designs that remain relevant while still being sustainable?
I mean, for us, it's something that it's not an add-on. It's just part of the process. And so we think about it from the early stages, as I mentioned earlier, about the planning, as what Hani is saying about right from the concept. And actually, when you talk about products, there are a lot of really beautiful products that are on the market today that have been well considered in the sustainability aspects, whether it's recycled content or reusable or whatever it may be. There's quite a lot out there already that's really beautiful. So I challenge and encourage everybody in this room and the people that you work with to do your research and look into the market to see what materials are available, to educate each other, to challenge each other, to look at innovative products and materials that are out there on the market today. And then, yes, there could be added costs initially, but there are longer-term benefits with savings. So reminding your client of the long-term benefits to them, to the environment, to the world, to everyone. We look at future generations. We look at this as maybe an add-on, but our kids won't. Our kids will look at this as like, this is what it is. This is part of the process. We have to do this. So remaining educated, looking at these innovative materials, you really have an opportunity to do something that speaks something. It's something beautiful that you can share. It's part of the story. It's part of the design. It's not an add-on. It's really something that we all need to consider. And I always say to people as well, look at what you already have as a starting point. There are clients who have existing offices, and there are things that they didn't buy that long ago, and can you use them again? There are products that were ordered for other projects that are maybe sitting in warehouses that are costing companies money. They could be used. There's nothing wrong with that. Could you find spaces for things that are already existing just to reuse, and you don't have to worry about things being transported? It's cheaper for the client. If you want to go back to cost, it's cheaper to do things like that. So just trying to be clever about how you're designing the spaces and things that you're putting into the spaces. I think it's a beautiful opportunity, not a challenge.
I would just jump in and say technology plays a big part in how to make products more sustainable. We have smart products, which is essentially bringing digital technology. Imagine a smart shower that you can start and stop on command at the temperature that you desire. You're saving water, warming up your shower when you use a smart product. Smart toilets, that we've got a number of them right across the way, and they are at 1.28 gallons per flush, which is low, and that is 4 to 5 liters per flush. We are working on much more, actually reducing it much more than that too, but that's all through engineering and technology. So it's possible. As we dream, as we think about how to create beautiful products and experiences, and how do we keep applying 3D printing. There's also an ability for us to 3D print certain products now, which saves on the footprint of manufacturing. So that there's so much more to come on innovation. Sustainability is driving designers and manufacturers like Kohler to innovate faster and to think of things we've never thought of before. So I think these challenges that are happening around the world are actually driving us to be better and to think of new ways to deliver amazing living experiences.
So something maybe just going back to your question about the relevancy of design. I mean, I would say like most of the designs proposed by architects or interior designers are actually really kind of responding to future. And I have seen many of these, whether on how the designs are pushing the biophilic design or kind of occupant-focused experience or benefiting from the daylight, etc. So all of this is actually sustainability, but the mission here is to capture all of these nice design strategies and quantify it so you can actually build a case and measure and influence the different aspects of the impact. And one of the things that we are struggling a bit with is that actually we have a great design, but as we move to operation, the management of building systems is not necessarily commissioned or operated in the right sustainable manner. And this is something that kind of feels a bit disappointing, because after all of the effort everyone put forward, we are not actually achieving the exact results. And that's where the pushback by certain owners or operators on sustainability or certification, that we modeled and we measured that it's potentially achieving this much of reduction, but in reality we couldn't achieve it because simply the operation and maintenance was not like accurately towards that sustainable performance that it's intended. One thing, I mean, just a bit aside of operation, but also to build a case on an overall kind of sustainability, one thing we did with one of the developers is to kind of quantify the carbon impact versus the capex investment. And in a small kind of whole life carbon costing analysis, we measured in an average that we can reduce around 20% of the carbon footprint by a small capex of 7% by simply showing different optioneering of different design strategies, material selection, and how those will react based on the service life. And obviously based on the kind of either building component or design component, you can measure that. And from there, you can actually think strategically on how to integrate these solutions based on what you can actually achieve or you have feasibility to execute it.
Well, that was positive notes. Helena, what is one new ideal or method that you've used that could become standard practice in today's sustainability in Saudi?
Sorry, could you repeat?
What is one new thought or method you have used that could become standard practice for sustainability in Saudi?
Ooh, give me a moment. Lighting design-wise, again, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. I said, what is one new method that you've used here in Saudi that could become a standard practice for others?
Isn't like design process. Okay. Well, we are becoming a standard practice for our studio, yes, but demanding others to design the way we are designing would be a little bit tricky. We are all, let's say, design divas. Everybody has their own approach in designing, but it's something that we work between our two studios, Dubai and London, to sort of integrate the requirements that happen in London and that happen in Dubai for the region as well. So it's not yet really defined between the studios yet, so I can't really say, but that is even a practice for the studios yet. But we're on the way.
Laura, what advice would you give to business leaders like you who want to start focusing on sustainability, but they're not sure where to start?
You know, I would say put your people in the center of a problem. Listen to your markets, listen to your customers, but your people, there's a lot of power in tapping the energy, the brains, the talents of your teams. Many times they have the solutions, you just have to ask. So, and listen to the community. I think the community, if you want a community to thrive, it will help you get to the answer of what and how does your business serve the community. So at the end of the day, people are the center, and if you serve the people, we should have thriving communities and businesses.
Layla, how do you mix cultural traditions, especially in a time in Saudi where they want to make sure to get in on the culture and heritage, in your sustainable practices with your designs?
Look, I think, we need to think about the environment that we're in. What is natural to this environment? Sumaya raised the topic of locally sourced materials. Being innovative again about products that you have available to you and what can be created. You're paying respect to the region by doing that, even just thinking about the things that are readily available. I think that's quite important. We have to remember that this is a desert, in effect, so we are not Europe. We don't necessarily have to design with the same principles that you would in Europe. I think you raised that earlier. Think about what makes sense here, what makes sense for the people here, but also an appreciation of the fact that this is very diverse, and this is a growing population. This is a region where things are developing and developing really quickly. We've got lots of different cultures coming together, and in some ways this is a combination of many cultures at one time. So people have different ideas that can be incorporated. It's hard to say that this is necessarily just one way of thinking. We've got so many different people who are forming the culture here, coming from different regions. There's lots of learnings, as Laura said, that we can learn from, just being respectful of that. But really thinking about like the region and what makes sense for the people here, I think is the best place to start.
Yes, I always tell everybody you should be life-centric designers. I completely agree with this. Sumaya, how do you balance old architecture traditions with the new eco-friendly methods, to feed off what Leila just said?
Yeah, I think it's a really important point. It's really learning. I mean, our ancestors lived in this harsh climate, and they survived and they thrived, and they were extremely resourceful. So, what can we learn from them in the way that they used the material that was available to them? Now we have a wider palette of materials available. Again, it's the innovation. How can we find a way to bring in this sense of locality, this sense of connection through the materials that we're using? And it's really kind of learning from the past to create something for the future. We're not just mimicking the past. We're not just creating sort of copies of what our ancestors did, but actually learning from them, learning how they were able to use what's around them. And then that way, there is a sense of continuity. There is, we're living in a different time to them, but there is a continuation. There is a sense of identity, but it's a new definition of that connection to place. It's not exactly the same way that it was done. So that's where the creativity and innovation, but still with that groundedness in place and connectivity.
So one question that I want to ask everybody here today: what is one small change that designers or businesses could make to lower their environmental impact?
Can I just take it in a bit of a different way? Maybe talking more about just simply corporates, and because I guess all of us are representing different entities that are involved in the value chain, and I guess one simple change can actually make a bigger difference, is that to kind of centralize sustainability in decision making, or in other words, bringing sustainability as part of the corporate values. And I think many of the corporates have succeeded in pushing the agenda, including Kohler, I would agree, that just simply sustainability is part of the core values. So every single decision at board level needs to be assessed from sustainability point of view. And we see major players globally are succeeding in this, maybe including IKEA, although we don't have any representatives, but I used to work with them, and I saw how this actually influenced the decision. And the reason why I'm sharing this from a design perspective is that, again, going back to the owner objectives, we want to build new, like maybe top-notch office spaces to attract, again, international tenants, but at the same time generating business revenue. But have we considered sustainability as part of that objective? If yes, great. If no, why not? And then how we can integrate that. And if we can apply that change, I would say like the challenge and the resistance and the awareness, all of these can be simply solved, because everyone needs to look into sustainability, because it's part of decision making, parts of mandate, parts of policy, and parts of execution.
I think really just encourage clients to think longer term. I mean, even just to the life cycle of the project, if it's a building, 50 years or 70 years, and maintenance. So if you have that mindset that I'm going to create something that is going to be they're going to last longer, it's going to be maintenance free, it's the systems that you're using, whether it's mechanical or electrical or air conditioning, they're efficient, again, using technology to create that efficiency, then you are actually going to spend less on maintenance in the long term. So I think that concept starts to for developers to change the perspective and really think long term, that it actually means that if you're thinking sustainably, you're going to save in the long term in terms of the life cycle of the project or the product or whatever it is.
I just wanted to add to that, and then my own point. One of the criteria of LEED is longer term leases. So that's exactly it. And we've had so many people who are part of the FM teams, and maybe the project they're thinking is like, this is going to be good for the next 5 years. But if you think about it for the next 10 years, it all of a sudden changes the mindset of how you start to plan spaces. And we've definitely worked with FM teams before who have said, well, I don't even know if I'll be here in 5 years. It's not really my problem. But it is your problem. So you've got to think about that. I think it's an excellent point, thinking about what this will be in 10 years, and are we designing something that can last 10 years? And if it's good quality, it's timeless, and then it is great design. So that I just wanted to add to that point. The other thing is going to sound a little bit funny, but I would encourage people to think about the waste that they're generating. So, and the reason this is going to sound crazy sharing this, but my wedding, one of my very good friends, she basically, in essence, wore a jacket that was a garbage bag for the month leading up to my wedding, and collected all elements of trash that she generated over the month in that garbage bag, wore it to my wedding. And yeah, it's madness, right? But if you did that as individuals, if you started to carry around the waste that you generate in a month, think about what that looks like and the impact that you're making as an individual. Where we are in our roles within this industry, we have the power to impact hundreds of people, thousands of people. We're making decisions for people who are within buildings who are then, going on and doing things within their personal lives. So we actually have a greater footprint because we can institute things within a design that then are reducing waste or increasing waste. And so imagine if all of the people that you're designing for started carrying around trash bags with every bit of trash that they've generated. It really starts to become quite scary. So I would ask people to think about that, think about the impact that you're making. And maybe it's not the most glamorous thing, but it starts to get quite ugly if you think about it. And it's really important.
I would say, I'm guessing that many of us in this room are parents of children. And we know that we want them to have strong bodies and we want them to grow. So you don't give them a snack choice of bad snacks. You give them a choice of 3 snacks that are all pretty healthy, right? So that if you want to give them choice, they will pick at least one of them, all that they can't go wrong. And I would say as a design community, that's what we need to start doing, is educating ourselves to give our consumer, our customer, our developer, our builder great choices, green specifications that will make their development sustainable no matter what. And how do we demand that of the product manufacturers to come to you with great product and great educational materials so you bring to the consumer, the decision maker, those great choices. So you're giving them an array of choices that are all good. So that is the one thing if I would ask the change, and I agree with all 3, but I would also say, how do we make sure that every choice we're giving the decision maker is a good one?
That's a good point as well. That is a very good point, and coming from somebody who recycles everything. I recycle plastic and paper and cans and glass and electric devices, and my house is like I'm a hoarder. Everything has its own corner when it gets dropped, and then everybody laughs at me because it's a small apartment. And then very often I ask myself, why are people not offering something that is sustainable? from basic things, from the toothpaste to containers to do this and that, and it's all one, and it goes to waste. After one use, goes to waste. So this is on a personal level something that I find irritating, and I also have friends who bother not to think about recycling at any point in their life at all. So that's another thing that is not so great to hear. But when you talk about business, from the professional point of view, as lighting designers, what I could say that I am trying to do, and also Foundry, is to educate the younger generations of lighting designers, and ensure that they also know the consequences of their choices, of what they're doing and choices that they're making, and as well educate the clients, encourage, as Sumaya said, encourage the clients, and as well encourage the manufacturers by specifying the products that are interchangeable and they're from recycled materials, so that they will get inspired to do more, and that will be a requirement that they would have to do, because it will get requested to be specified, to be made. And so this is already something that we're doing. It's not something that we're going to start or so. It's from, as I explained, from personal point of view, something that bothers me a lot. And so I'm trying to, in a nice way, to impose, if possible, to other professionals as well.
I like your analogy, by the way. It's one thing as a design strategist I always use here for all my clients. I give them 3 choices. I learned when I started giving 3 choices, they always choose one. When I give one at a time, I never get the project over with. So great. I wanted to ask you, Hani, as you are a director of sustainability, I'm sure that you've helped a lot in creating the policies for the companies. Can you tell us a little bit about that, about some policies that maybe you've created in sustainability?
Yeah, of course. And maybe one of the policies worth highlighting is actually I led the development of Mustadam rating system here in Saudi Arabia five years ago with the Ministry of Housing. And that was absolutely inspiring, because you can see how much of potential is happening in the real estate and design and construction. And as the Ministry of Housing taking the first initiative before anyone else to establish the first rating scheme, and the start actually, and maybe no one knows, the start was just simply to develop a rating system for housing, because housing obviously is one of the most critical challenges and demands here in Saudi Arabia. But it went very successful, and the first draft of that was very comprehensive, that we got the directions actually, okay, let's just simply expand that and cover every other kind of asset typology. So rolling that out was a bit kind of stressful for us, because we didn't know, as a voluntary rating scheme in Saudi, if it can work or no, considering also that there is LEED, which is known internationally and is very recognized and in the competition for such a local rating system. But we made sure, as part of the rollout and the contribution of Mustadam, on how Mustadam can actually bring more kind of recognition on a national scale, by actually showing that Mustadam is kind of developed to respond to specific national challenges and linked to Saudi Building Code and other regulations. And the first year where we rolled out multiple training courses and we trained thousands of engineers, you start seeing the traction by different giga developers, at least, by mandating Mustadam day by day. And now almost half of us here are aware of Mustadam, and that's actually something I'm very proud about. To know that Mustadam is becoming something that is actually driving sustainability is great. Maybe putting Mustadam a bit aside, some of the nice aspects that we are seeing is that every developer is going above and beyond of whatever is available, because let's not forget that Saudi Building Code, they have their own green building code, so it has certain design or sustainable design parameters, and you have those rating systems. But as you work with different either developers or operators, everyone is creating their own sustainability procedure or guideline. And this is actually something that brings more kind of creativity and challenge, because as part of what we do in creating those new policies, you need to think how you are not kind of duplicating what exists already, but also bringing more added value that is achievable and responds to certain objectives of this entity. And there are many kind of examples, but I mean, I can publicly share about Mustadam, not others, but yeah, that's from my end.
So I think what's really interesting is that all of the designers and everybody here are using products like yours. How do you all make sure that your products stay sustainable? You mentioned a lot of products that you use or that you've created from the company. How do you guys keep...
Right. So this year, in January, we were able to finish tagging 8,000 products that have sustainable certifications on them. And whether it's water conserving, recycled material, built to last, which is cast iron, and that is almost 100% recycled material. So I think data is very important to your authenticity in the space. And for you as designers to require data from your suppliers that are truly, really ensuring that that product is sustainable. We also were able to create sustainability icons around these certifications so that every product, all 8,000 of those products are now tagged in our data warehouse. That means that marketing people, salespeople all over the world can pull out those attributes, and when they're marketing a product, they can tell the consumer, the designer, the developer, exactly which product is sustainable and what attribute it has. So I think that is part of our next step to really ensure that our messages, our efforts of design for environment is actually getting to the end user so that they are confident in what they're purchasing. So I think for me, that is something, it's continuing to get better. Pushing yourselves, whether you're a design firm, whether you're an architecture, whether you're a manufacturer, to continue to get better and push yourselves to do the really hard things, right? Push yourselves to use recycled content. We are now reusing our manufacturing waste streams in our potteries and our foundries, and we're repurposing those into some of our products. And we want to be zero waste to landfill by 2035. So it's things like that that will push you to get better. And it seems impossible today, but tomorrow we will figure it out.
So I want to go around and I want everybody to comment on one last piece of advice that you would like to tell everybody in the audience today regarding today's topic. And then we'll open it up for questions because we know there's always a lot of questions here in Riyadh. So please, it would be an honor for everybody to share.
Yes, I think we cannot really afford not to think long term anymore. I think we've had blinkers on for too long, and we really have to think long term for the well-being of our communities, the next generation, and I think the change of mindset is really crucial. And I really think that we're all connected, whether you're a manufacturer or a designer, or different elements of design. We really have to work together to create that mindset shift in order for we won't have the need to have such discussions in the future because it becomes mainstream.
I would just follow up on what Leila said before. As individuals, we need to know that everything that we do has consequences, and it is today, not to sound cliche, but we need to start making changes in our own behavior. And personally, I know I could also do better. I could do more, as I mentioned before, it bothers me that I have friends and have people around me who actually don't have a second thought when they throw two things that don't go together in the garbage, and it shouldn't be going together. Back in my house in Serbia, we actually even recycle organic waste to make the fertilizer for the land, and this is what also comes from the house. So from home. So when parents parents should be starting, let's say, what's older, egg or the chicken, but parents should be starting thinking about this and then educating the younger generations to know that it is far too late now to just, still to have an option not to do anything about it. So this is hopefully still positive.
Yeah, can I just add? I talked about connection in the heart, and you said fall in love, which is really what it is. And I think when you fall in love with the place, then you start to care. And when you care, you're willing to inconvenience yourself. So you were saying about, whether doing without things or not having so many things or recycling and just making the right choices. Sometimes it's an inconvenience, but if you really care, then you are willing to inconvenience yourself. And I think that's really, we need to fall in love with our environment.
Again, I'm jumping. Yes, that's correct. And I just wanted to add a comment that I forgot to mention before. I live in Dubai with the rest of my friends, and the comment that I get when I say that I recycle and so on is like, why do you care? This is not your country. And it's like, that's the first problem of the attitude, It doesn't matter whether it's my country or not. I do have the sense of responsibility wherever I go of the actions that I have or that I do towards the environment. So therefore, perhaps that would be the first advice. It doesn't matter where you're from or where you're living, you are still a responsible adult that has to take care of their actions.
There were two things that I was going to say. One thing is, I actually think we need more mandates. I think we need more government influence, and I think that all the people in the room, designers, developers, suppliers, whatever it may be, we all should work closer together before a project even starts. Let's come together, share ideas. Let's start with the schools in our region. Let's get our kids educated on all of this. Let it be our mindset. Let it be the only way that we think. I think that's really important. And the other thing is, I think when people look at big changes, they sometimes get overwhelmed by how big the change can be. And if we just start with small changes, start with one thing that you can start with tomorrow, and let that be your now everyday way of doing things. So whether it's starting recycling, I don't know, any kind of small thing that you think that you can do, if everybody just did one little thing, it does make an impact, and then you start to see how that can have a knock-on effect and people get more comfortable with it. It becomes a way of life. So just start small even, but let's all start.
I would echo that 100%, especially on the policy enforcement and mandate. I'm being very realistic. While all of us can commit, all of us are well kind of knowledge in sustainability, but I would say, to be honest, I started feeling stressed about achieving our long-term targets, because the more we kind of keep it for the commitment and the buy-in and the initiative, the more we are struggling to actually achieve those targets. And especially talking about the built environment or the real estate or the interior design sectors, we are in a very kind of competitive markets. And while we can always commit to sustainability, once it gets to delivery and the clock will start ticking, there are more priorities that come to the agenda before sustainability. And if we have more mandates simply by regulators or disclosure throughout the supply chain, this will simply force everyone to invest. As soon as you start investing in sustainability, that's it. You need to get some return on that investment by simply pushing more on sustainable solutions. And this is across the whole value chain. And that can solve plenty of our problems, honestly. And we see a lot of success by policy change. Now, yes, it takes the market by storm sometimes. It has resistance and it has its challenges, but it can set everyone on the same agenda, following certain objectives and finding the solution for that. And I think this is what we need. We need more policy updates.
Thank you all so much. Laura, do you have any last takeaways?
Yeah, I would just say finally, people usually change because of a burning platform. It really forces a mindset shift, a behavior shift, and all of us are in the business of people. So I would say use empathy. Walk in the shoes of your client, of your customer. try to understand their point of view, and then make sustainability relevant to them. Again, people will change if they think and how it affects them. Why is sustainability important to me, right? Help your client make the shift to understand how sustainable solutions can improve their life, their workspace, their development. I think it requires extra work by all of us, but if we can use empathy to understand and help them learn as to how they can live a better life, they will transform more quickly.
Anybody else have any last words? I think they picked a perfect panel for this talk. Okay, thank you all so much. And we're going to open up the floor for questions.
Hi, everyone. So I have a couple questions regarding planned obsolescence. I mean, Laura was talking about technology, but the way technology is if something goes wrong, I have to remove the whole thing and throw it out and buy something new. How is that sustainable?
That's a great question. We haven't had that issue yet because we are still new in smart products. I will also tell you that our products stand the test of time. So our job is to make sure that when you apply technology to a product like a toilet, a sink, a bathtub, sometimes our products last 50 years. We have to ensure that the technology application continues to let that product life extend. So I will go back to make sure I ask that very question. But obsolescence with technology, we certainly don't want our core products to obsolete out because of technology. So that's a great question. But our products do last a long time. And sometimes that's to the detriment of the business, if you know what I mean. But technology enhances the experience, and our job is to make them continue to be resilient over time.
Salman?
If something is authentic or not. And I think mud construction is something that we're really interested in. We're experimenting with it. There are new ways to work with mud rather than the traditional way. Bricks is having the mud walls. So it's for us, the material is really important because it's that real. I mean, you know, we're very connected to the earth, especially. So it's important to, if you're going to innovate and use it in a new way, then really innovate and use it in a very new way, but keep the essence. I think not to lose the essence of the material.
So as we cover it from the cement blocks, is it sustainable? Or are we just covering the problem?
Yeah, I don't think, you know, it's we're still using concrete, and it's not really the essence of a mud brick wall. So I think, you know, we're trying to fool ourselves here a little bit.
Can I share thoughts here? I guess, I mean, it's valid to accept the fact that the main kind of business as usual is concrete, all right? So we cannot run away. But we can always explore how we can reintroduce Adobe, like kind of envelopes and using mud. And I guess we have been trying, I mean, all of us. And we see great examples here, specifically in Riyadh, by actually introducing this. But it has a lot of challenges. And we have been, as ASG, into this challenge, especially our facade team. So to kind of just shift away from concrete is something that is, I would say, is not feasible right now. But at the same time, what everyone is trying to achieve is to kind of reduce the impact of concrete and steel, because concrete and steel can contribute to 80% of your embodied carbon. And what everyone is trying to do is to kind of optimize by simply introducing recycled content into concrete, or, for example, being more smart by changing certain methods or going modular, or, for example, using ultra high strength steel, which is simply you will achieve your load objectives but with less quantity. In this way you are actually saving. So one of the things, like, I'm just trying to conclude is that concrete is not sustainable, but we are trying to reduce its impact until we figure out maybe going back to mud or introducing new innovative techniques.
Thank you so much.
Does anybody else have any questions? We'll have one more question and then we need to wrap it up. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm going to open a can of worms here. I'm an independent lighting consultant, and I just wish there was more joined up holistic thinking, and that the whole subject, it has to start somewhere, wasn't so tick box. So, for example, I lit a building in Europe that scored a sustainable point for having a back box on the back of the building, but no one cared about the visual environment around the back. So no self-respecting bat would live in that box. It was just the most academic point you could ever win on a building. I land regularly in the middle of the night in Dubai, and there's a taxi sign that's so bright, I swear you can switch off 3 lights either side of it. I lit virtual reality centres across India, and I had a lot of media screens in the entrance. I can't measure the content because it changes. I can't measure the light level, but I know it gives a light level, so I can reduce the lighting around it. This is the way we should be thinking. And just going back very quickly to what you said, Hani, the difficult conversation you had with the lighting designer over that technical space, over the energy requirement versus the light level, that would have been a very quick conversation with me. Oh, yeah, it's a technical requirement. You know, we're going over here, but I'm going to save you there, there, and there. That's the kind of joined up thinking that, you know, we should be doing as designers, as opposed to just scoring points.
Just quickly, I mean, maybe I can conclude that debate on a positive note, because actually we went innovative on that specific project and we introduced solar tubes, which are actually like kind of bringing sunlight through reflective tubes and actually supply. So what we did is actually we managed to save around 35% of energy from lighting through kind of substituting artificial lighting with some solar tubes. But obviously you cannot do this on multiple floors. You need to have it at roof level or at ground level exposed directly to roof. So I can totally agree with you, but I mean, it's not always a happy ending, let's say, but yeah, we are trying our best.
I just want to say thank you to all the panelists and your invaluable information and your time today. Thank you for everybody for listening to us in a very warm room. That makes me very happy that you thought it was that valuable, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.